board in RCIA to help especially talk about the dignity of the human person and the gift of sexuality that God gives us. So she has been presenting in RCIA. She is a certified fertility care practitioner. I proctored her exam for her. I do remember that. So she knows what she's talking about. So thank you, Brianna.
Like she said, my name is Brianna Muller, married to Derek Muller. We live just south of Mitchell here. We have 3 boys, another one coming in March, which we haven't really announced that, but yeah, we're pregnant. I'm a certified fertility care practitioner. I was trained by the Pope Paul VI Institute for the Study of Human Reproduction. So I, on the side, teach couples how to track, women and couples how to track their fertility, and then based on their goals, either to achieve or avoid pregnancy. And that qualifies me to talk about human sexuality, apparently. So when I was looking at contemporary issues, I found it interesting that I think they get deemed contemporary issues because it is where we are most wounded. So these issues seem to be where our wounds are as human beings. So these issues come up, and when the church teaches truth, quite frankly, it hurts because there's a wound there of some sort. So they become these contemporary hot-button issues because there's so much pushback, because we've been wounded in these areas. And it's a lot easier to push back instead of opening the wound and let Jesus heal the wound. So even some of the issues that I read that are not on the list that I'm going to present, I think that really rings true. So the issues that I'm going to present today really revolve around human dignity and human sexuality. Father wanted me to touch on creation, human dignity, human sexuality, so that's the path we're going down. So why are these the most disputed teachings? I gave one reason. Another is that Our Lady of Fatima talks about how the final battle will be over marriage and the family. So how do we break down the marriage and family if you're the enemy? Well, first, you attack each member of the family and attack their identity. Scramble up what it means to be human, what it means to be male and female, and the significance and very meaning of the marital embrace. So in this short talk, I'm going to present what it means to have dignity, and then a brief explanation on the position of the church's most commonly disputed teachings. I feel like I'm going to go through things quickly, and I don't want you to hear fire and brimstone. I want you to know that everything that I'm giving you is what the church gives us out of love, because she knows this is our path to heaven. So I'm going to give a lot of information. I don't want it to come off as fire and brimstone kind of teaching. Know that what I'm saying is because the church loves you. So first, creation and human dignity. And you can follow along on the sheet that I gave you or take notes on it, whatever you want to do. In Genesis, it states, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. Man is the only creature that God willed for his sake. We were made by the divine, for the divine. The only thing that will satisfy the longing in our hearts is the divine. So what does it mean to be created in the image of God? Well, the Catechism tells us that being in the image of God, the human individual possesses the dignity of a person, not just something, but someone. He is capable of self-knowledge, of self-possession, and freely giving of himself and entering in a communion with other persons. So no other animal has self-possession. For example, if a dog is hungry, it's going to eat. Under natural law, it's motivated by instinct and passions. It can't just wake up one day and say, oh, I think I'll fast for the intention of my brother. No other animal has self-possession except We are capable of self-knowledge, of self-possession, and then freely giving of ourselves and entering into communion with other persons. So in that knowledge and self-possession, we are not slaves to things of this world. So then we are free to enter into a communion with another. God tells us that we have this dignity and that we are someone, but also that we are made male and female. So I'm going to transition into the body specifically. So Christianity believes that the body, mind, and soul are intimately integrated. We profess the resurrection of the body in the Creed. At the end of time, our bodies will be resurrected and we will partake in a wedding feast. We will be even more human than we are right now, which sounds weird, but it's true. Our bodies have incredibly significant meaning. Pope St. John Paul II states in his Theology of the body and it alone is capable of making visible what is invisible, the spiritual and the divine. So simply put, we cannot see God. He is pure spirit. But he wanted to make his mystery visible to us. So he stamped it on our bodies by creating us male and female in his own image. So our bodies reveal truths about the divine. Again, in the book of Matthew, Jesus says, "Have you not read that he who made them from the beginning made them male and female?" Christopher West, who is an author, a Catholic author and speaker, and he really made the teachings of theology of the body accessible to the average person, discusses the root meaning of the word gen, like G-E-N. And I'm going to read straight from his book, because he says it well. This is Theology of the Body for Beginners. The root gen, G-E-N, from which we get words like generous, generate, genesis, genetics, genealogy, gender, and genitals, means to produce or to give birth to. A person's gender, therefore, is based on the manner in which that person is designed to generate new life. Contrary to the widespread secular insistence, a person's gender is not a malleable social construct. Rather, a person's gender is determined by the kind of genitals he or she has. While the sexual and feminist revolutions of the 20th century were right to challenge the roles of conventionally limited to one or the other gender, there are still two roles, one belonging only to men and the other to women, that are inalterable and absolutely indispensable for the survival of the human race: fatherhood and motherhood. When we understand the gender, genitals, generation link, we also understand why a degendered society is bound to be degenerate. Indeed, failing to honor the God-given meaning of gender places the future of the human race in peril. Christopher West also poses the question, do you know what it's called if we try to live spiritually apart from our bodies? It's called death. The rupture of body and soul is death. So is it really surprising when we look around and see this gender fluidity and then the rate of mental illness, depression, suicide, especially among our young people? Why has this gender identity crisis left such peril? Well, because it goes against what God has written on our hearts. It rejects that our body is actually part of our identity. Gender is not a malleable construct. We are not able to choose our gender. One may be a more effeminate man or a masculine woman, but God has made us male and female, and in that, he gave us our very identity. And he knew this identity when we were a mere thought in his plan before we created. So like Christopher West says, trying to separate our body and soul only causes death. So naturally, after a discussion on the body, there are usually questions on same-sex attraction and homosexuality. So we're going to touch on that. So no matter what our state in life, we are all called to a chaste love. What do I mean by a chaste love? I think chastity is the most misunderstood word. I should say misunderstood virtue. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So the Catechism says, chastity involves the inner unity of bodily and spiritual being. So an integrity within ourselves, and then an integrity of the gift of ourself. A simple definition of chastity would be that our sexual passions and appetites are governed by our reason. Actually, the Catechism states that chastity blossoms in friendship. In the loss of chastity, the Catechism continues, we have a loss of freedom, because these passions are no longer governed by our reason, so now we're slaves. So then we are not free to love. If we don't have chastity, we are slaves to our sexual passions. We are not free. And we can't give what we do not possess. So I can't give a true and pure gift of myself if I don't have self-mastery and self-possession. So what does this look like in different states of life? A married couple is called to live a chaste love by being a gift of self and not being slaves to their sexual passions. Meaning, just because a couple is encouraged to come together in a sexual union does not mean it should be from a lustful disposition or motivated by a disordered sexual passion or fantasy. A single person is called to a chaste love by leading a chaste life, by being a gift of self, and not being a slave to their sexual passions. If we keep with the definition of chastity, a single person's soul is not united to another, so their body should not be united to another. And remember that chastity blooms in friendship. So this is where a person learns how to be a gift of self without the sexual gift. So, a person with same-sex attraction is called to the same thing that everyone else is called to. Same-sex attraction in itself is not a sin. We cannot always control our feelings. However, acting on this attraction is the sin. Acting on this attraction violates natural law and is closed to life. So the person with same-sex attraction is asked to live a chaste life by being a gift of self and not being a slave to their sexual passions. There are several support groups to help people with same-sex attraction navigate this, because you can imagine how confusing this is when the society is telling you the complete opposite message. So within our own diocese, there's a group called Courage. That meets, I know the closest one is in Sioux Falls. And there is another group ministry called Desert Stream Living Waters that does a lot of work with not only same-sex attraction, but also a lot of other addictions, including porn and a whole list of things. So that's a brief description of God's design for a chaste love. So now we're going to look at God's design for marital love specifically. So the Catechism states that by its very nature, the institution of marriage and married love is ordered to the procreation and education of offspring. And it is in them it finds its crowning glory. Children are the supreme gift of marriage and contribute greatly to the good of the parents themselves. So there are 4 goods of marriage that are the vows and the wedding rite: partnership, permanence, fidelity, and fruitfulness. These 4 goods of marriage, which are part of the vows, reflect the 4 aspects of God's love, which you may have heard: the free, total, fruitful, and faithful. These are kind of the buzzwords that we use in marriage prep. Marriage is meant to be an icon or an image of the Holy Trinity. So within the Holy Trinity, the Father begets the Son by giving himself to and for the Son. And in turn, the Son eternally receives the Father and eternally gives himself back to him. The love that comes forth from this is the Holy Spirit, who we say in the Creed, proceeds from the Father and the Son. As an image of the Trinity, the husband and wife give themselves as complete and total gift to one another, and from this, new life comes forth. Our sexuality is to image the self-giving, generating love between the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So to render the act sterile by using contraceptives is saying, I don't want to image God with my body. I don't want to speak the truth of who God is with the language of my body. And we know how important the language of our body can be. In fact, you are speaking a lie with your body. The reason I say that is because on your wedding day, you vow to each other to love each other freely, totally, faithfully, and fruitfully through those 4 goods that I described. Then on your wedding night, you speak those vows with your body. If you render the act sterile, you have now cut off the fruitful and total part of the vow. And think about the concept of contraception, or if we want to say safe sex, quote unquote. It's hard to use my hands with both of these. For example, like, yes, I want to make love to you, but I'm going to kill any sperm that come my way, excuse me. Or, yes, I want to make love to you, but first let me put my barrier device in place. This language of protection is contradictory to the language of self-gift. Pope Paul VI in Humanae Vitae, meaning of human life, reaffirmed the constant teaching of the Church, saying, each and every marriage act must remain open to the transmission of life. Christopher West expounds on this, saying that spouses must not do anything of their own will to close off the act of intercourse to human life. We are not free to change the goal and natural end of the act, which is procreation. If we render the act sterile, we are taking matters of creating life into our own hands and acting as God. First commandment. So wedding vows of free self-gift, total self-gift, faithful self-gift, and a self-gift that is open to life is meant to be expressed and renewed with each act of the marital embrace. The sexual act is a renewal of wedding vows. I'm going to say that again because I'm going to bet most of you have not heard that. The sexual act, the marital embrace, is a renewal of wedding vows, and for a married couple is a source of grace. Because you are giving yourself to one another freely, totally, fruitfully, and faithfully. Again, it's a source of grace for a married couple. I hope you can start to see that how a breakdown of the meaning of the sexual act is a breakdown of the wedding vows, and in turn is a breakdown of the family. So what the Church has permitted for families to regulate family size is natural family planning. The Church recognizes that God has designed women with natural periods of infertility, and natural family planning relies on sexual abstinence during fertile periods in the woman's cycle. As assessed by various biological markers, science has come a long way. There's a lot of methods. Women can track temperature, cervical mucus, hormones, etc. Contraception uses something of the couple's own will to try and close the act of intercourse to human life. How long have I been talking? I didn't look at the clock. 20 minutes?
Give about a couple minutes.
Well, I think maybe stop there. I'm going to add a short caveat that the Church permits NFP, natural family planning. That is not to say that just because a couple uses natural family planning, that all of a sudden all the sin has been wiped away. there's still the intention of heart. So the couple still has to look at their intention of heart and how they're using it. On your sheet, there are bullet points for in vitro, because that was another topic I had. Although I'm going to go over, I think, my time. So I might wait, and if it comes up in Q&A, go over it. You have short bullet points on yours, and I have more explanation to give on those bullet points. So if you're curious, write IVF on the question card, and we can talk about it in the Q&A.